Hello everyone. This is a quick summarization of the Lusitania conspiracy that happened. The ocean liner that got hit by German torpedo in World War One in 1915, I believe. Basically, they say it was an inside job, and we're going to basically discover why that is not the case. So, basically, obviously, the Germans had U-boats in World War One. Basically the Americans and I believe the well, maybe not the Americans, the British definitely, but maybe the Americans. They basically ordered the Lusitania to travel in a zigzag, like so, simply because U-boats have to surface and slow down quite significantly to actually fire. So the Lusitania and other liners like it, like the Titanic, what have you, basically probably didn't even need to travel in the zigzag. The speed they have, they probably could have actually outrun the torpedo anyway. The captain of the Lusitania, the name eludes me. I remember this is just a brief summarization anyway. He ended up being disorientated, for lack of a better word, um, in order to make maneuvering of a in a ship. So basically, he sort of turned around. So it basically slowed him down rather significantly. And basically, when he did slow down, it slowed down enough for the U boat to actually hit it with a torpedo. And the actual initial hit from the torpedo was minimal, if not just above minimal. It wasn't enough to sink the ship, essentially. A few minutes later, maybe a couple to a few minutes later anyway, obviously people were starting to go onto lifeboats. It's a rather tragic tale, actually. It's probably the worst bit of the whole thing. Um, they all went to the lifeboats. Obviously, there's not that many on the ship because we didn't learn our lessons from the Titanic, despite the James Cameron propaganda. And essentially, all the not that many lifeboats. So the children, the women, children first. The children were all on the lifeboats, but they were all on the right side. Now, the problem is with it being on the right side is that there was a massive secondary explosion. And I believe the flames were 10 to 20 feet high in the air. So, and the problem is this resulted basically in the boat sort of tilting to the right. And it basically, the Lusitania sank in, I think, 19, 20 minutes. It was phenomenally fast, and it's unfortunate. So basically, all the lifeboats that were on the right hand side, all the children that were in the lifeboats, they capsized into the sea. So obviously, uh, the boat does that when they're all on there, and they all basically went with it. It's quite horrible, really. And now, where the Lusitania actually is in the ocean, it occupies I don't know if it's a current or it's a pressure generated by the of the sea. Basically, the wreck's flattened like a Coke can. If you put your hands there like that, it's basically done that. What we do know is, and this is where part of the conspiracy comes from, is that they were unknowingly carrying munitions, which is false because it's in the manifest. They were carrying British 303, they were carrying artillery rounds and stuff like that. So the British and the Germans were likely aware of it. Well, the British definitely were aware of it. It was on the manifest. The Germans could have known. The civilians may or not knew about it. I think some knew more than others, shall we say. And so basically, there was an expedition, and this is during the 60s. This is where the first conspiracy comes from, because the guy who actually did the expedition was a bit of a few pennies short of a pound. You know what I mean? And basically he dove down and he said, "I found the hole, but it's on the wrong side." And so he basically said that, there was a secondary inner explosion because they were carrying all of these munitions and that, and they reckon that they were carrying like mines, like an early variant of C4. I think it's gun cotton. It's like a prototype or of a similar nature, shall we say. Either way, it's not a very good day for whoever is on the receiving end. Let's put it that way. And he claims that, they set this off on purpose. So they set off a mine or something on purpose, which resulted in a secondary explosion. And so basically, there was another expedition. I think it's 2007, 2008, similar like that. But the owner, or at least the person conducting the expedition, is also a bit of a conspiracy nutcase, shall we say. And he went to the wreck, and they reckon that they found many crates of live ammunition, and I think they had some American ammunition there too, which makes sense because America was basically giving arms to Britain during World War Two, World War One, not World War Two, although they did in World War Two as well. This also led to massive gun control in Britain, but that's around for another day. And basically, they went down there and they found these crates, but all this ammunition and artillery shells were not ignited. They were live. So, if someone did basically ignite the ammunition that was in these crates deliberately, then all of this other ammunition would have gone up too. It's domino effect, the world's most lethal domino effect, but domino effect it is, if you know what I mean. And basically, there's nothing like left there. They're all detonated multiple times. There's no eyewitnesses to back this up either. Because they'd have all, like I said, dominated one of them. They'd have gone, one would have gone off, one would have gone off, one would have gone off. And there's no eyewitnesses to back this up. Now, admittedly, people were in a bit of a panic back then. And what basically they can tell, and the initial report, the initial hit from the torpedo generated a breach in the hull. Not a massive breach, but enough for the water to rush in, basically, at a phenomenal rate. And what would have done is, they reckon it would have overpowered the boilers inside. And basically, it got so much for the boiler actually exploded, which resulted in the massive secondary explosion with, a spout of flame several feet high into the air, which unfortunately resulted in the very fast sinking of the Lusitania and to the massive loss of life, which, has been overshadowed by people trying to basically be famous for having conspiracies, and it's quite sickening, really, when you think about it. So that's pretty much what they reckon did actually happen with the Lusitania, is that it got hit by a torpedo, water rushed in, and it overpowered at least one of the boilers, and the boiler couldn't handle it, and the boiler exploded, leaving significant damage, which basically made the ship sink. Because basically what happened, the Titanic, sank like that, like a comedy cartoon. The Lusitania, as we just mentioned, sank like that. So that's why it was significantly quicker, because obviously it had a massive breach not only on this side but also a big one on this side. So obviously the water might come rushing in and it would just, do that. So that's pretty much what they reckon happened. I firmly believe it, because, if someone did detonate explosive off, they'd have all gone off, and it didn't. So, bit of a quick video. It's a brief summarization, because the actual video itself, if I was to do this, in a professional setup, as you can see, it would take far longer, essentially. So that's what I reckon happened. I do believe that that's what happened. Just an unfortunate turn of events. There's no grand conspiracy, but then when isn't there a conspiracy these days? So take care, everyone, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.